Part 135. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1345. Lehman's eyes lost their pupils, and his eyes became as deep as black holes. A chaotic aura representing cruelty, conspiracy, and killing burst out from him. This small underground space was suddenly filled with countless hazy black light spots, and these light spots were whirling around him like flying insects. "I am Lehman," Bailong struggled, trying to let out a low roar. But the blurry and twisted black shadow in his mind let out a shrill smile. "No, I am Nemitras, son of hell, ha ha ha." Suddenly another deep voice burst out from his mouth. Raymond's entire dragon body exuded a strong evil red aura. His body seemed to expand a lot, and black whips and ropes slowly appeared behind him. These long strips of things appear and disappear in space, constantly shuttling and crawling like snakes. Into the darkness and out of the shadows. "Let's go, let's punish those void intrusions." Raymond seemed to finally stabilize, grinning with a ferocious smile. Tear. A black crack opened directly in front of him, revealing the scene of the shadow plane inside. There seemed to be many shadow creatures fighting with some alien creatures in the gray plane. The portal that Raymond opened seemed to be right in the middle of a small battle. He rushed in without a care, and soon there were screams of pain and misery inside. "It has been 5 days since I returned to the clan. Garen is entrenched on the new Dragon King Peak. This original snow peak was named Dragon King Peak by him. It is obvious that he has no intention of surrendering to Bailong Mountain." Garen consolidated the situation of the entire White Dragon clan. There were 15 adult dragons, more than 80 young dragons, more than 20 old dragons, and all the young dragons died in the battle. Only some white dragons who had signed symbiosis contracts in other places survived. This is the current situation of the entire clan. As for the 3 elders and other senior leaders, they almost exhausted their life and soul. After transferring all their strength to Garen, they completely ran out of energy and died peacefully in their own caves. The Dalata Empire has declined. Its original glory and strength also declined rapidly due to the disappearance of Emperor Gus during the 10,000 Dragons War. They can't even protect themselves, let alone take care of the weak White Dragon clan here. Snow City even lost 2 council-level masters, and the casualties among the remaining mages were even lower than they actually were. This was a brutal war, and the void creatures became the biggest winners. Both the Dark Elf Empire and the Dalata Empire suffered unprecedented heavy losses. Garen did not make any additional arrangements. The food in the clan was already insufficient. He first sent some food from the Tower of Winter. The Tower of Winter had a huge amount of food that was enough for the clan to eat for more than 10 years. All of them were fixed in the vacuum space equipment. Garen was originally intended to be used as a consumable when an accident occurs and the Mage Tower is trapped in a desperate situation such as a time storm, but he did not expect to use it here first. In any case, the clan helped him a lot when he was weak. Soon he gathered all the white dragons who could fight. The Void original code has made new progress. He used the potential breath and soul absorbed by the Despair Skull and the Death Bracelet to further enhance the original code. The most critical and most powerful secret weapon finally reappeared in him. Cold Prison Peacock Mother. Garen was in the most enhanced state in the mecha world. He has reached a point where he is even more tyrannical than the original Han Hell Peacock Mother. And when the Void original code was raised to 100% in one breath, this once powerful secret weapon finally regained its original power. Putting aside a series of freezing abilities, in fact, the winter low temperature ability of the Hell Peacock Mother overlaps a lot with that of the White Dragon, and the power is almost the same. It does not increase Garen's strength much. At most, it just adds a chaotic cold zone and a little more mental confusion. Effect. But the most critical ability of the Cold Prison Peacock Mother is a key factor in Garen's development of power. Seed of Distortion. Seed of Distortion 5, Creating chaos is the biggest hobby of the cold hell peacock. The amplification quality is increased to 12 times. The mutant produces a pollution effect. The contaminated body will mutate into a secondary twisted body on its own. The quality is increased by 12 times. If the upper limit is reached, it will automatically stop. This is Garen's biggest key reliance now. Without any surprise, Garen collected a large amount of various foods and magic cores, directly used the devouring ability of the cold hell peacock mother to swallow them, and then condensed the twisted seeds to parasitize all the current 15 white dragons. Go up. The distortion seed has a very strong strengthening effect on humans, but that is because the human body's physical foundation is too weak, and the white dragon belongs to the dragon clan, and its real foundation is too strong, so the strengthening effect is unlikely to reach the peak of 12 times. The fact was not beyond Garen's expectation. The parasitized white dragons only had their overall attributes doubled, but even so, it was already very terrifying. The attributes of an adult white dragon are approximately between 40 and 30 points, which is a 6th level creature. However, after being parasitized, their attributes are directly doubled, and they become between 60 and 80 points. After all, there is a limit to how twisted seeds can be strengthened. Otherwise, if it can strengthen the gods by 12 times, wouldn't it be able to directly increase the level of godhead? The upper limit of the twisted seed is actually based on the cold hell peacock mother. The upper limit of the most powerful cold hell peacock mother is the peak to which the twisted seed can be strengthened. Moreover, this simple enhancement also needs to be restricted by rules. It is unlikely that the white dragon's bloodline will be raised to a too high level without evolving, and their bodies simply cannot bear it. But just like that, the 15 white dragons turned directly into level 9 creatures, which was extremely shocking to the entire clan. It only took one day to go from level 6 to level 9. Galen's prestige instantly reached its peak. There are 15 level 9 white dragons guarding the surroundings. Although they are both hand-to-hand warriors, coupled with Garen's own arcane protection, dimensional confinement, and other defensive methods, no matter whether it is teleportation spells, projection spells, or reality intrusions, they cannot interfere with him. And he is also trying his best to absorb the soul fragments in the artifact death bracelet. There are too many debris absorbed on the battlefield. Even with the help of Galleon's consciousness and brain, he can only slowly digest it by himself. However, the peaceful life did not last long. In this chaotic era, Garen still found time to go to the Sunfire Mountains. He had to see and once. Dark Abyss Bottom. A white dragon of ordinary size slowly flew towards the bottom of the valley. His movements were slow and prioritized. Countless black smoky faces in the abyss surrounded him and kept trashing him, but they did not dare to get too close to him. It seems that there is something in this white dragon that they are afraid of. He hadn't been here for a long time. This time, because the necklace given to him was destroyed, Garen also spent a lot of effort to find the strange snowstorm and enter it again. Swooping down in the darkness, Garen soon saw the hazy seal at the bottom again. And was sitting next to the sealed ball of light, talking to a creature covered in flames. As if sensing Garen's arrival, the flame creature raised its head and glanced this way. Garen's heart trembled. This guy's simple glance put a lot of pressure on him. Demigod, he wondered. Garen, come down, and turned his head and stretched out his hand towards Garen. Suddenly, a huge distorted space swallowed the Galleon package, and when it reappeared, it was already next to Anhi's flame creature. And is still so beautiful. The black dress seems to have many new patterns. I don't know if it is the original one or a new one. It is still mysterious, powerful, and perfect. He is the demigod Lich Plaid. There has been a misunderstanding between you, but it is not too late to resolve it now, and said succinctly. Demi-Lich. Garen immediately became wary of this guy. Liches are already difficult enough, and you can't kill them even if you can't find the phylactery. Coupled with the fact that he is a demigod Lich, it means that this guy can summon a powerful undead army of millions in minutes. This kind of terrifying guy has always been capable of slaughtering cities and destroying countries. It seems that the invasion of the void has awakened all the hidden people in this world. An idea flashed through his mind, and Garen smiled at the other party in a friendly manner, transforming into a human form. Your Excellency, Garen and my student had a misunderstanding at the beginning, but now that An has intervened, we can still become friends. The Lich was shrouded in flames, and his attitude towards Garen seemed to be very friendly. Your student, Garen was a little confused. Yes. He lives in seclusion in the Sunfire Mountains and has some pain knights under his command. Demigod Lich Plaid replied in a low voice. It turned out to be that one. Garen suddenly recalled that the pain knight he killed turned out to be a subordinate of this guy's student. Thinking about it, this guy was probably encouraged by the students to take action himself, but after chasing him, he discovered that An was actually a powerful being at the mid-level god level, so he naturally reconciled. A few years ago, I declared that I would join An's army, and now I am traveling with you, the demigod Lich replied with a smile. You could vaguely see that this was a handsome young man with a bright face. Garen, you came back just in time. I may need your help to send a message, and said softly from the side. What letter? How many demon lords or true spirits can you inform? And opened his mouth and directly exposed Garen's background. However, it doesn't matter what Garen's current level is. As long as An is still there, he is not afraid of other gods coming to him. He thought about it. The 3 nearby demon lords should be able to notify. Well, I need to do something more troublesome. The more helpers I need, the better. Of course, you can also participate. I have seen some unknown changes in you, which may be able to help me. And said solemnly. You can tell those demon lords and true spirits that I can pay them a satisfactory reward, but I need them to help me do one thing. What's the matter? If you need my help, please count me in. Garen became serious. At what level? The demon lord and the true spirit level need to be mobilized to participate. You must know that the demon lord is both a god level, but the strength is different. That's all. And smiled slightly, and she knew that she was right about Galen. With such a personality, it was worthwhile for her to help him in the first place. For a person like Garen, as long as he has helped someone, he will firmly remember the favor given to him by the other person, and will not hesitate to come forward when the other person needs help. She raised her hand slightly. A layer of hazy black mist suddenly enveloped the 3. Ever heard of the God of Time and Shadow? Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1346. Garen's expression condensed. The God of Time and Shadow, this guy is an ancient god, not one of the many gods that appear in the eyes of the world now. As a being who can control time, he is almost one of the oldest gods among gods. Even the oldest Mother Earth is at most equal to him. He is the most mysterious and the least visible person. Even though part of his role as the shadow of the priesthood was taken away by Ms. Shar, he was not dissatisfied at all and allowed the believers and priests to pass away. The Grey Shadow Council in the north is actually where his true church is, and continued. The most critical purpose of setting up the Shadow Council is actually to find my location. So, the rumors are true, demigod Lich Plaid frowned. Yes, even though I was sealed, they couldn't find a way to kill me. Even the pull of the Star Realm couldn't do anything to me, and said calmly. For so many years, Kashavan, the god of time and shadow, has been looking for a way to kill me, but it's a pity that it's useless. 500 years ago, I found an opportunity to directly peel off the sealed land and send it into the gap of endless plane turmoil. Drifting in the space tunnel. They completely lost my whereabouts. And for so many years of sealing, it's time to give back. Grid's mouth felt a little dry. He was in the flames, but he also felt a slight uneasiness. Is this your purpose? You guessed it right, and showed a ferocious smile. It's time to take back what belongs to me. Now that the gods are in turmoil and have no time to take care of themselves, there is no better time than now. Garen's heart was shaken, Anne's meaning was obvious. Kill the god. Moreover, he is a god whose vocation is the same as hers. Shadow and time, Anne's abilities are also related to this aspect. It seems that the gods specially found such a targeted god to monitor the seal. The god of time and shadow belongs to the upper level of medium divine power. Although An also has medium divine power, the two are different concepts. After all, An has been sealed for so many years and is extremely weak, otherwise she would not seek the help of the demon lord and the true spirit. Help. I'll go back and contact as many demon lords and true spirits as possible. Garen thought of this and responded directly. Of course, don't worry, I won't leak the news rashly. That's good. And nodded with satisfaction. Garen, you really have great potential. In such a short period of time, I haven't seen you improve so fast even among those void creatures. You already have it. Threatening the strength of a demigod, maybe in a short while, I will no longer be able to see through you. What she meant by incomprehensible was that Garen truly entered the realm of demigods and formed his own realm. Although demigods are far away from medium divine power, they are still beings at the same level after all, so there are not many thorough talent inspections. Ability. The demigod lich next to him heard this comment, and then he looked at Garen again. At first, he was only kind to Garen because of An. Garen didn't pay much attention to it. And wanted to kill the gods. This news was indeed a bit big. He was still far away from the level of gods. Being able to threaten demigods did not mean that he could threaten the gods in the kingdom of God. It's like you can kill a person in front of you with a knife, but you can't kill the president of your country, although the president is also a human being. Okay, you can leave first. And noticed that Jia Lung had something to say to him. The plaid was opened first. When the pattern turned into a ball of fire and disappeared, Garen let out a breath. He began to tell all about his development in the abyss and the problems he faced. And also listened very carefully. Evil God, after Garen finished speaking, she thought for a moment, my enemies are not many in the abyss, but the Great Mistress is one of them. It seems that she took the initiative. Don't rush now, wait. After my affairs are successful, I will go and talk to her personally. A trace of blood suddenly flashed in her eyes. She asked casually after glancing at Garen. You can be considered half of my disciple, and the artifact in your hand must have been given by someone else, right? Don't you need a powerful soul? What is the maximum soul you can absorb? Garen's heart was suddenly shocked, and then he was overjoyed. After careful calculation, he found that there is no limit to the maximum number of souls he can absorb. However, if he does not gain new insights, he will not be able to condense soul seeds and soul rings, but can only reserve them as potential points. Now he has a lot of potential points, which are almost endless. What he lacks is a soul ring that can increase the upper limit of his soul. Whether it was condensing true spirit or improving attributes, what he lacked was a soul ring. As long as it's not a demigod, I can absorb it, Garen said directly. But it is best to have a domain master soul with special insights. The strength level is not very important. Except for the gods, no one can compare with An's number of kills. A master level soul with special insights, and frowned slightly, I don't have many such souls. The Lord God and other demons and evil gods like such souls. If they are a little more religious, this kind of soul is the Holy Spirit and can be transformed into a god. The existence of only incarnations is extraordinary. She hesitated and waved her hand. Suddenly a grey mist appeared in front of Garen. Here are the souls of 2 masters in architecture. They are the only ones I have preserved. The rest were originally traded by me for other resources. Garen was immediately delighted. Directly use the death bracelet to kill 2 groups of souls. Thank you, teacher, he took advantage of the situation and confirmed his relationship with An. Indeed, without An's help, he might have been killed by the Pain Knight as soon as he arrived here. In addition, I learned a lot from her later, so this kind of relationship is nothing. And did not refuse such confirmation of the relationship. He just nodded casually, then raised his hand again, and Galen disappeared at the bottom of the abyss. When it reappeared, it was already above the Sunfire mountain range. By the way, I accidentally caught a void creature some time ago, and it actually has an aura related to you. So I didn't eat her. Now I'll investigate it for you. Garen was about to cast a spell to teleport back to Dragon King Peak, but An's voice continued to come from the air. Before he could react, he saw a black hole appear out of thin air, and then a small black cage flew out and landed in his hand. There were several small figures huddled in the cage. One of them was a girl wearing an Earth-style short skirt. This girl has jet black waist-length hair, wears an ultra-short pleated skirt, has a delicate face like a doll, and is sleeping with her body curled up. As for the other two people, a man's eyebrows, beard, and hair are all red, blood red, and the other woman has long blue hair, but her eyes are like inlaid gems, not like human eyes at all. Nadia, Garen couldn't help but recall the nine-headed dragon king he had encountered in the vampire world. Looking at the beautiful girl in the cage in his hand, Nadia had left a deep impression on him. If he hadn't finally obtained the Holy Phoenix scripture, he probably wouldn't have been able to defeat Nadia's projection at that time. Is it the Demon King? A Demon King level existence, the other two people were still awake and seemed to recognize Garen's identity. Your Majesty, although we were once stalkers, now that the void is unified, there have long been no camps. We are willing to swear allegiance to your command to the death. The man pleaded loudly. He seemed to sense the identity of Garen Void Stalker, and his face showed a look of joy. Are you Void Stalkers? Garen asked in a low voice in ancient Yinduo language. Yes, my name is Rista, and she is my companion Elphys, who was our former hunting target, the nine-headed dragon king Nadia. But now, the man Rista smiled bitterly. This once great enemy is no more powerful than an ant in the hands of the stalwart beings of this world. They are the last remnants of the ancient Yinduo civilization. They have been fighting on the front line to protect the inheritance of ancient Yinduo. They almost completely cut off the inheritance of the warlocks. But what they didn't expect was that the power of the Mother River suddenly grew stronger and destroyed a large number of them. The vague imprint of the true spirit that was about to die was extracted and injected with power. For a time, countless true spirits emerged from the Mother River, and the warlock civilization seemed to have returned to its heyday. Their mission has come to an end. I originally thought that a war would break out again between Yinduo and Void, but I didn't expect that the top management of both sides would be directly unified, forming two major organizations, the Void Temple and the Mother River Alliance, and together they would invade another huge world. After being captured by a Void Demon King, they were forcibly thrown into this world as cannon fodder for the vanguard, but unexpectedly they were lucky enough to survive. Is Nadia really the nine-headed dragon king? Garen showed a smile. After coming to this world for so long, he finally saw a guy who had fallen into the same situation as him. The nine-headed dragon king Nadia bullied him very badly back then. Now, looking at Nadia in the cage in his hand, Garen had a malicious smile on his face. Although to him, no matter how strong Nadia is, she is no more than an ant to him now. The huge gap between the Legion level and the Demon King level is mainly in immunity and resistance. The Demon King will be immune to most of the special abilities of the Legion level, but the Legion level cannot resist various special abilities of the Demon King level. Both sides also have level soul suppression. During the battle, all attributes will be suppressed to a certain extent. With Garen now reaching the level of a high-ranking Demon King, against a Nadia, rank suppression alone would be able to suppress most of her abilities to the lowest level of the Legion. In other words, Galleon now only needs to rely solely on physical strikes to crush this guy to death like an ant. I know, I didn't expect that I would get something extra this time. Garen put away the cage, tore it open with both hands, and directly tore the space in front of him, stepping in. The other side was directly inside his winter tower. The Tower of Winter has been moved to Dragon King Peak again by him. This top-level mage tower itself is like a battleship fortress and can move and float at will. It's just that the energy resources that need to be consumed are a bit huge. But for Galleon, things that can be solved with money are nothing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1347. After Garen became the clan leader, the White Dragon clan officially changed its name to the Winter Dragon clan. Leaving Bailong Mountain. The main material plane stronghold of Bailong Mountain was furious and sent troops to conquer. However, Garen was entrenched in his own territory and absorbed the two master souls. As expected, the two master-level souls were broken into pieces by Galleon. After eating them like oatmeal and absorbing a lot of memories, in just 2 days, he condensed 2 new soul seeds. The 8th soul ring also officially began to gather. The further the soul rings go, the slower the progress. The Despair Skull and the Death Bracelet, one absorbing potential points and the other sorting out the fragments of enlightenment, complement each other perfectly. Garen began to wonder whether he should take the initiative to search for the souls he needed. After all, he is the Dragon of Disaster, not the honest White Dragon King. After hearing that Bailong Mountain actually sent a crusade force, Garen suddenly became interested. What? Clan leader, are you going to take the initiative? Annie, the newly selected captain of the White Dragon Guard, exclaimed. What's all the fuss about? Galen lay lazily on the ice sculpture throne, looking at the stunned expressions of Annie and a group of white dragons below. Since the team sent by Bailong Mountain has targeted me, I don't need to be polite to them. But, Annie wanted to say something else, but Garen raised his hand to stop her. Garen has always had a human body since he was able to transform into a human. He sat on the throne and looked around below. I'll leave the affairs within the clan to you. If you have anything, you can crush the crystal stone outside my cave and I will get the news immediately. Garen will not be tied to the same place by a clan. This is a period of chaos. Void creatures and the big plane was frantically fighting, and when the order was at its most chaotic, it was the critical moment for him to hunt for soul fragments. Now that it is confirmed that a highly enlightened soul can help him condense the soul seed soul ring, it seems that the method of the Lie Demon Lord is indeed very effective. Garen's thoughts were spinning in his mind, and he suddenly understood why many demon lords' true spirits started killing people as soon as they arrived. It turned out that it was not just because of the 9-sided body. Since we are already so far behind other demon kings and demon lords, it would be wrong to continue to be so lazy. The Tower of Winter will protect the entire Dragon King Peak. I have already arranged a special spell. Temporarily bringing the area within the scope of the labyrinth spell, Garen waved his hand and sprinkled a small piece of silver-white seed-like particles, which fell on the scene. In the hands of all the white dragons. This is my special amplification seed. You can choose whether to take it or not. After taking it, your overall physical fitness will be improved, but you will never be able to turn against me. You decide for yourself. Garen looked at the white dragons who were still talking and didn't want to talk nonsense. He just teleported and disappeared from the throne in an instant. Hundreds of twisted seeds have been released. The first batch to be released is the strongest white dragon Annie, as well as a large number of demons from the Abyss Revenge Fortress. These twisted seeds cannot control their minds, but they can make it impossible for them to pose a threat to the Mother Garen, and they will also be linked to the safety of the Mother Garen. If Garen dies, they will die. After scattering a bunch of twisted seeds at will, Garen teleported directly back to the Tower of Winter. Taina Nadia is still in a coma, while Rista and Elphys have been released by Galen, but they can only move around on the first floor of the Mage Tower and cannot go out. Garen teleported directly to the level where they were. The two guys were having lunch. When they saw Garen coming out of the shadow teleportation array, they immediately stood up together. Lord Garen Rista was the first to speak. "What are your plans? Are you leaving here or staying?" Garen asked casually, sitting down next to the two of them. He is not very interested in these two void stalkers. Masters of this level in this world are at most 8 or 9 levels, and he has many such subordinates. "Since I have said that I will be loyal to you before, I will never break my promise," Rista quickly replied, "and when we come to this world, there is no stronghold that can protect us. Sooner or later, things will continue to happen." He smiled bitterly. Elphys next to him nodded. "Originally we were chasing 9-headed dragon King Nadia, but now, even she is not much better than a baby, so what's the point of our pursuit?" Elphys had an indifferent expression, as if he had already looked away. "The descendants of Guy and Duo no longer need our protection. The true spirit has reappeared, and our existence is no longer relevant." Garen pondered for a moment and threw out 2 twisted seeds. "Eating this will increase your power. Then there is a library of basic knowledge on the 2nd floor. You can go and see it yourself. I will open up your permissions. For the rest, you can grow and evolve through killing in this world. Specifically, ask the snail about the situation." He waved his hand, and a piece of paper and pen floated not far away. He picked it up and wrote an address. That is not an address in the ordinary sense, but a special dream address that only void creatures and ancient Yinduo civilization can understand. Just contact him in your dream, and he will tell you everything you need to know about this world. "Thank you, sir." The two of them quickly bowed to express their thanks. Garen also disappeared in an instant. The two looked at the twisted seeds in their hands, and faced each other with a wry smile. It was obviously something to protect against them. When Garen reappeared, he was already in the isolation room on the 5th floor. This floor here is mainly a treatment room, and various medical facilities, arrays, books, and instruments are all here. Nadia was lying in a ward, seemingly awake, and staring blankly at the faint sunshine outside the window. Click. Garen opened the door and walked in. "How is your recovery?" He walked in the door with a smile and looked at the beautiful girl on the hospital bed. With jet black and shiny waist-length hair, and still skin as white as porcelain, Nadia leaned quietly on the hospital bed. The moment she saw Garen, her eyes widened. "It's you!" she screamed in shock. "Yes, it's me." Garen walked over with a smile and sat down beside the hospital bed. "It seems like you're not doing well." He reached out and touched Nadia's face frivolously. "What are you doing?" Nadia's face suddenly became angry. "Don't think you can save me." She didn't know what words to use to describe Garen's current actions. "What can you do?" Garen dodged the hand he slapped, and his hand reappeared in its original place as if it hadn't moved. Gently pinched Nadia's soft and delicate face. "You are my prisoner now, how about it? Why don't you ask me to let you go?" he chuckled. "Don't even think about it." Nadia wanted to gather her weapons, but found that her whole body was sore and she couldn't exert any strength at all, and her face suddenly turned paler. "Galen," her dark eyes almost burst out with fire. "It's a waste that I had some appreciation for you at first." "Appreciate it?" Garen suddenly pulled her over, and the two of them were face to face and very close. "You beat me up several times back then." His hot breath sprayed on Nadia's face, causing her to look away unnaturally. "If it weren't for that, how could you suppress me?" she shouted in embarrassment. "Kill me if you can." "Kill you?" It was rare for Garen to find a fun old acquaintance. How could he let him go so easily? "Why should I kill you? We are all old acquaintances, and killing you will do me no good." He let go of Nadia and let her lie back on the hospital bed. "You bullied me for so long, but now things have changed, and it's my turn to bully you. Garen was in a good mood and joked casually. You'll be dead when I'm healed. Nadia was so angry that she grabbed the white quilt and glared at Garen. The air behind her even vaguely condensed the black shadow of a ferocious nine-headed dragon, but the suppression of a bit of phantom spirit is worse than that of a little cat for the current Garen. Okay, stop being naughty and take good care of yourself. You can visit and use the entire floor as you like. Garen came over to tease Nadia to relax her mood. As he expected, his mood improved. Nadia was obviously in a worse mood. Build your own happiness on the pain of others. Garen suddenly felt that he was really bad. He touched his chin, wondering why Nadia was pleasing to his eyes. It is rare to see a familiar old friend in this strange world. Although the relationship between the two is relatively complicated and it is difficult to distinguish between friends and foes, they still feel a bit familiar. After leaving the Tower of Winter, his original plan was finally about to be implemented. Ever since he obtained the method of the Lord of Lies, Garen has been planning a crazy plan. There are still more than 10 years left. If he cannot obtain the power to protect himself within this period, once the war breaks out, the true spirit will be destroyed. The war between the demon lord and the gods will begin. In the chaotic war between gods, all those who are not gods will be ants. Garen does not have much ambition for dominance, he only hopes to gain the power to preserve himself in this war. But even this is a relatively luxurious dream. At this point, all we can do is fight to the death. After carefully packing up everything, Garen brought a map of the entire north of the main material plane. Quietly left Dragon King Peak. On the large snow field, white snow fell one after another. In mid-air, beneath the pale white sun, a huge sphere like a globe was moving at high speed. It was surrounded by a ring of satellites. It was completely white and could barely see its shadow in the heavy snow. The sphere is thousands of meters large, with many ring-shaped spaces carved out by exquisite carvings. In each space are some men, women, and children wearing white robes with white dragon patterns on their chests. These people slowly move inside their respective spaces, walking around and patrolling. At the top of the sphere, there was a small empty platform, on which stood a guard sentry lazily. This guy was yawning involuntarily. Really, we actually have to use the war fortress. It's not enough to just jump and teleport over such a short distance. We also have to fly over slowly. I really don't know what those elders are thinking, the sentry muttered, with blue pulses dancing on his fingertips. The lightning showed his astonishing skill in magic. Such an ordinary sentry actually had at least 5 levels of arcane magic. Stop complaining. We will be back soon. There are very few opportunities to use the fortress to fight. This time we come out just to intimidate them, but we may not actually fight. Another sentry who came up from behind to change the shift said with a smile. There have been more and more void creatures recently. We may have to go to the battlefield one day. I guess this time we will just treat it as an exercise. The sentry from before shook his head. You can see far, but I think. The sentry who came later suddenly stopped talking. There is something wrong. His expression became solemn, and he looked at the snow-covered sky in the distance. Doo-doo. Suddenly a sharp siren sounded from the fortress. High-energy creatures are approaching at high speed. The tower spirit in charge sounded an alarm. Please issue an identification command. In the middle of the fortress, there is a large control room. 2 elders with white hair and white beards sat on 2 high-backed chairs respectively, frowning and looking at the scene outside the crystal glass. It's so fast. Bordeaux, it may be a dragon of the same kind. Do you want to take action? Another elder looked at the elder sitting at the front inquiringly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1348. The elder known as Bordeaux remained silent, his eyes fixed on the crystal window. It's the breath of the white dragon. At this time, He is the senior elder sent by Balong Mountain to intimidate Garen of the White Dragon clan. He is also a member of the Dragon Clan Council, and his strength is unfathomable. The purpose this time is to shock Garen and quickly subdue him. The interests behind the Tower of Winter cannot fall into the hands of other forces. This is the foundation of our White Dragon clan. A thought flashed through his mind. If we hit him head on, Full Moon Fortress doesn't need to be afraid of any dragons. If he is well intentioned, he will naturally stop. If not, then he is seeking his own death. He set the tone. That's right. The white dragons around here are probably all under Garen's command. Oh, he has slowed down. Could it be that he is here to surrender? Another elder looked outside with interest. Outside the fortress, a white shadow drew a white line and flew straight towards the white ball fortress. His speed was slowly decreasing, and Long Wei also restrained. But just 1 kilometer away from the white ball fortress. Boom! The white line suddenly accelerated, its speed soaring to several times its original speed in an instant. The white dragon hidden in the heavy snow suddenly opened a passage that was like a vacuum without any snowflakes. Using a terrifying speed that exceeded the cognition of ordinary white dragons, it slammed into the white ball fortress. What does he want to do? Damn! Is he crazy? We're about to hit you. Stand still. The white dragons in the fortress were stunned. They never expected that there would be a creature that directly hit the war fortress with its physical body. Simply crazy. The white line arrived in an instant, and after bringing out a circle of transparent ripples, it seemed to pause for a moment, and then suddenly appeared and hit the front of the fortress. Boom! In the huge vibration, the fortress shook violently and collided with the white line in mid-air. Its huge kinetic energy was also stopped by this fierce impact. Looking up from below, the front of the white ball fortress is severely sunken. A large amount of white fragments were scattered by the splash. A trace of electric current and blue light energy spread from the surface of the white ball. After the white ball shook with a bang, it fell diagonally downwards. Anti-magic field. This guy. The white dragons on the surface of the fortress immediately transformed and flew out. The white dragons here were all the best among the best. Each one had a strength of at least level 7. They had all been released by the 9th level Archmage with the ultimate transformation technique. The fortress tumbled and fell. A large number of small snow animals below were running around in panic. Bang! The fortress was like the largest snowball, slamming into the snow below. Splashing snow powder flew high like ocean waves. A circle of wavy snowflakes spread towards the surrounding distance. Some snow foxes and white bears that couldn't escape were directly smashed into minced meat. The fortress rolled a few times, crushed a small grove of white pine trees, and then stopped moving. Inside the fortress, in the driver's room where the two elders were, a young man dressed in white was floating quietly in mid-air, quietly looking at the two elders opposite who were also suspended. The cold fields between the three people were intertwined, and the terrifying force field naturally spread out, turning the entire cab into a world of ice and snow. It was as if even the air was frozen for a moment. Elder Bordeaux. When I heard that you were coming, I came to greet you as soon as possible. The suspended young man is Garen, who left the Dragon King Peak. After receiving the news, he immediately went to intercept the dispatch team from Balong Mountain. There were no friendly troops, no subordinates, just one person and one dragon, and he rushed directly towards the dispatched troops. Bordeaux's face was ashen and he stood side by side with another elder. They never expected that Garen would dare to attack the White Dragon Mountain team head-on. They must know that they represent the orthodox status of the White Dragon to a certain extent, and they also have the great Tiamat standing behind them. Galen, he stared at the other party with almost gritted teeth. You are blaspheming. Blasphemy, Garen smiled slightly, the great Tiamat doesn't think so. Maybe you should ask the evil dragon god for advice again. Let's see what he thinks of me. His face gradually changed as he spoke, slowly melting and deforming from a human face to a slender head like a white dragon. A pair of evil, powerful, strange, and profound mutant dragon eyes appeared in front of the two elders. They were a pair of strange eyes with a pair of dragon eyes and a pair of eyeballs in the pupils. Just looking at them made the two ninth-level elders tremble and tremble. Bordeaux trembled all over, pointing his finger at Galen and wanting to speak, but found that he didn't even have the strength to open his throat, and all the strength in his body seemed to be draining away quickly. Tisk tisk tisk. Ripples of high-level protective force fields lit up on his body, but to no avail. That look was so evil that even the last half-artifact Liu's light that was inspired shattered with a click, and Bordeaux's whole body began to melt, gradually dissolving like a candle. His skin, hair, and muscles all began to drip a large amount of viscous liquid. The other elder was in exactly the same situation. The two level 9 old dragons didn't even have the basic power to transform back into their original form. They could only watch themselves melt and disappear. It's so fragile. There was a hint of sarcasm on Garen's face. White Dragon Mountain has long forgotten its original glory. Now Bailong Mountain has decayed. Do you think so, Your Majesty the Great Tiamat? He turned and looked head-on at a shadow on the left. I don't know when there was a thin ordinary white dragon guard standing there. When he heard the question, the dragon guard let out a sharp and weird laugh. It's really interesting. I should have thought at the beginning that if it wasn't the incarnation of His Highness coming, it must be the invaders from the void. Now it seems that it is indeed the case. It's a pity that you're late. Garen narrowed his eyes and said in a casual tone. Late? No, it's not too late now. Longwei raised his head. There were actually 5 shrunken human faces of different colors on the face of the human body. Inlaid on a small face, it looked ferocious but had a sense of sanctity. Even if this is just a temporary projection, it can still be done to deal with a level 12 kid. Really? Garen showed a strange smile. An invisible distortion naturally emanated from his body, enveloping Tiamat's projection. Garen just stared at the other person quietly, and the innate ability of mind poison naturally spread along his gaze. Laugh. 10 eyes on Tiamat's side blinked at the same time, and their eyes collided instantly. A fuzzy force field seemed to explode in the air, and a large amount of debris and garbage in the middle were rolled up and moved in all directions. Splash. The mind poison collided with Tiamat's evil sight attack. Garen dodged slightly, and his natural ability was suppressed. The psychic toxin was neutralized, and at the same time Tiamat's sight attack landed on the metal wall behind him, burning out a hissing and dense pit. Tiamat smiled sharply and shot towards Garen, but she also trembled slightly. Poison, he was stunned. The talent poison domain is now effective. Garen laughed and rushed forward. Talent poison domain, if your constitution is below 50, you will automatically fall into a life loss coma. If your constitution is below 100, you will have a chance of becoming weak, reduced by 1 to 4 levels. If your constitution is above 130, you will be immune to the effect. It was obvious that Tiamat, who was just a projection infused into the body of the dragon guard in front of him, did not have 100% physical fitness. The other party's aura dropped rapidly. Snort. Tiamat's body shook, and a golden halo bloomed from his body. Warn. Warn. It has entered the realm of divine power, and the chance of saving throw in the physical toughness test is 34%. If the saving throw fails, the negative effect of the level is to drop 2 levels. The mighty domain is now in effect for you. Garen hasn't felt it yet, but the conscious brain in his mind has quickly sent feedback. Divine power, he suddenly felt his whole body sinking. As if he was wearing extremely heavy shackles, the dragon power and arcane energy in his body were reduced by 2 levels at the same time. At the same time, his whole body attributes also dropped by an average of 30 points. With a chill in his heart, Garen no longer dared to show any contempt. The heavy divine power oppressed him, causing his speed to drop a lot. Neither of them changed into dragon form, but just rushed forward to fight. As soon as Garen made contact, he completely exploded with terrifying melee combat skills, various secret martial arts skills, and killing skills. Driven by the huge power, he exploded with incomparable power. As a five-headed dragon, Tiamat has nearly 5 times the qualities of dragons of the same level even in her incarnation. He actually collided head-on with Garen's strength and skill. After a brief confrontation, the two exploded. There were faint traces of blood on Garen's chest. His strength was actually not as good as the Tiamat projection in front of him. The opponent's strength was actually close to 200 points. After calming down, Garen used his strength to push on the wall of the fortress, and a big hole exploded. His whole body suddenly twisted, and the surrounding air seemed to drop a lot of temperature. He opened his mouth suddenly. Call. A large stream of ice dragon breath sprayed towards Tiamat in a cone shape. Stupid, before Tiamat could finish her words, she suddenly felt her whole body tense up, and an extremely strong sense of crisis suddenly surged into her heart. Suddenly he cast a spell to teleport away from where he was. Boom! A huge metal layer of the fortress was lifted up by a figure and slammed past his original position. A large hole was opened in the fortress behind, revealing the flying snowflakes outside. The dozens of meters long metal layer flew out like bricks. After a few seconds, it disappeared into the distance. An extremely strong and burly man appeared in front of Tiamat. Kill him. Garen's voice came not far away. The man's mouth curved, and the muscles all over his body expanded violently as if inflated. On his back, 7 black and red Death Star acupoints slowly lit up. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1349. As if sensing something was wrong, Tiamat narrowed her eyes and slowly backed away. Compared to the man in front of him, his body was inferior in terms of pure quality. The opponent seemed to have some special secret method of increasing his body. He could not match the opponent purely physically, and his extraordinary ability was temporarily blocked by Galleon. This made him hesitate to start a hunt that he had been quite confident about. Boom! Before he had time to think about it, the man in front of him had expanded 3 times, from the size of an ordinary human to half the size of an adult white dragon. Oops! The man shouted loudly, thrust his fingers into the ground, pierced into the ground with a hiss, and then lifted it violently. He bent and tore off a large piece of the metal layer on the ground, and then spun and smashed towards Tiamat. Evil dragon eyesight. Tiamat's 10 eyes stared at the metal plate in front of her at the same time, and a powerful force field was suddenly released to solidify the spinning metal layer. But the force field that was working just now only lasted less than 2 seconds before it collapsed, and the metal layer continued to hit him. Bang! Tiamat teleported away from her original position, and looked back to see that her previous position had been smashed into a large hollow. The entire fortress ball rolled hard in that direction. Celestial phenomena. Huh! A strange cold wind blew by, and more than a dozen translucent ice crystal halberds appeared behind him, stabbing towards his back at high speed and silently, as if they were held by many invisible creatures. Rainbow Jet. Tiamat suddenly released an extremely intense and dazzling colored light. This light was mixed with 5 colorful dragon heads transformed by divine power, which slammed away the halberd behind her like a whip. Roar! Tiamat suddenly opened her mouth and roared fiercely in the direction of Garen. Boom! A 5-color mixed dragon's breath suddenly burst out from his mouth. Lightning, fire, cold air, strong acid and poisonous mist. 5 kinds of terrifying and powerful dragon's breath were mixed together, forming a storm-like terrifying attack that went straight to Garen's location. Chi Ming jumped up high and punched dragon breath from the front, but to no avail. The terrifying dragon breath instantly destroyed all the muscles in his body. Even if he had twice the physique of Garen's body, he was instantly knocked out by the divine attack. Disappear. The only effect 7 lives can play is to slow down the speed of the dragon's breath a little bit, and at the same time slightly weaken the color luster of the dragon's breath. Garen sensed the dragon's breath the moment it broke out. He quickly moved his original position, only to find that the dragon's breath storm was still chasing him around the corner. Suddenly I was horrified. With no time to hide, Garen's eyes widened, and 2 pure white rays of light burst out from his eyes like lightning, charging head-on into the oncoming dragon's breath storm. Elemental protection, he also took advantage of the short buffer time to chant a high-level spell. A layer of colorful barriers was erected in front of him, followed by the second and third. This variant of the 9th level spell Elemental Protection was specially designed by Garen to target Tiamat's memory. It was calculated and analyzed using his consciousness. Due to his speed and his powerful intelligence, it only took a few days to successfully parse these 9th level spells. From the moment he crushed Tiamat's magical crystal, Garen had already begun to prepare for a possible attack by the incarnation of the god. Although Tiamat is only a weak deity with divine power, and it is unlikely that he will descend to earth in person. Among its abilities, the most famous is the 5 different energy dragon breaths ejected from Tiamat's 5-color dragon head. It really works now. Garen erected 5 layers of elemental protection one after another, blocking in front of him like colored glass. After the poisonous eye was released, it instantly hit the center of the 5-color dragon's breath, penetrated directly and silently, and accurately shot towards Tiamat's projection behind. A split-second response. The dragon's breath storm finally arrived, and the 5 layers of 9-level protection in front of Garen were quickly shattered layer by layer, and the luster of the dragon's breath quickly dimmed. The speed slowed down even more rapidly. Taking advantage of the slowing down time, Garen made a quick kick, and his agility of nearly 200 points directly unleashed a terrifying effect. Even if he was suppressed by the divine power, he instantly disappeared from where he was like light, as if he was teleporting and could not be captured at all. This is the supernatural phenomenon that naturally occurs when agility reaches a certain level, teleportation. Garen's shadow appeared directly beside Tiamat, grabbing the opponent's arm and shoulders hard. Spells cast instantly. Time Anchor. A transparent wave spread throughout Tiamat's body. Make it impossible to teleport. Bang. Tiamat looked shocked, never expecting that Galleon's speed suddenly escaped his perception and teleported over. He raised his hand and a large amount of black rays burst out from his hand. These rays are actually all 9th level death rays. This kind of ray is strengthened from the intermediate debilitating ray, and each ray has direct lethality against the soul. Compared with the dissociation technique, which directly targets the decomposition of matter, this method is more targeted at the soul. Normally, level 9 spells, even top level 15 wizards, can only release them one after another. At most, some special metamagic techniques and improvements, as well as powerful mental power and energy magic mobilization, will make the spells more powerful. But it's impossible to put a lot of them together like this. Obviously Tiamat also made a targeted understanding in order to deal with Garen. A large pile of black rays twisted, like wavy lines, surrounding galleons from all directions. The distance was too close and the rays traveled at the speed of light, making it impossible to dodge. At the same time, Garen's hand also fixed Tiamat for a moment, preventing it from dodge. The rays of the poisonous eye penetrated the 5-color dragon's breath and fell directly on him. Hiss. Amidst the extremely violent corrosion sound, all of Tiamat's eyes widened at the same time. Is this corrosive divinity? A golden shield of divine power appeared all over his body, but the gold on it was quickly offset. After all, it is just a projection, and the divine power it brings is already very powerful to this point. The consumption was almost exhausted, but what Tiamat didn't expect was the various abilities Garen displayed, such as supernatural teleportation, poisonous eyes, and the inexplicable appearance of powerful clones, as well as its own his talent, poison domain, mind toxin, and these series of abilities are superimposed, and he doesn't look like a level 12 existence at all. To say he is level 15 is an understatement. Just wait, after he opened his mouth and said these last words, his whole body melted instantly and turned into a pool of grey-white pus. A dot of golden light flew out of the pus and shot towards the damaged part of the fortress. But he was immediately grabbed by Garen with quick eyes and quick hands. There was an abnormal flush on his face. Although this battle was short, he had almost exhausted all his cards. Supernatural teleportation combined with the poisonous eye, the power that exploded even frightened him. But in order to finally make Tiamat unable to avoid the poisonous eye, he also paid a heavy price. At least more than 20 death rays were taken down by him. Even if his constitution exceeds 200, facing this top-level 9th level ray with divine power, his whole body seems to be dehydrated at this moment, and his skin, muscles, and bones are rapidly weakening and shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. He casually stuffed a bit of gold in his hand into his mouth, and without looking at the other white dragon guards in the fortress who came after hearing the news, Garen directly shot out of the breach and quickly disappeared into the wind and snow in mid-air. Divinity is flying around in Garen's dark soul space. This small golden sphere, like a crystal ball, has a small 5-color dragon with dragon heads emerging from inside. It is the original image of Tiamat. This evil dragon god with 5 dragon heads keeps making huge roars. It's useless. In the center of the dark soul space, Galleon's voice came from a huge tower-like column. The cylinder is composed of circles of soul rings. The bottom is 5 colorless and transparent soul rings, and then there are red, orange, and then red again. If you were to incarnate, maybe I could only run away, but it would just be a mere projection. Garen's face appeared on the surface of the soul ring pillar. Countless colorless and transparent tentacles flew out from the soul ring pillar overwhelmingly, tightly wrapped around the divinity who had nowhere to escape, and then pulled it back. The golden sphere of divinity flew directly towards the soul ring pillar, and was actually snorted by it. Swallowed it in hard. Although Garen was highly concentrated, he still underestimated the huge amount of information brought by a divine projection, not only the information about the divinity itself, but also the large number of various information transmitted to this projection by Tiamat. Common sense knowledge. This is not pure destruction, this is Garen using the powerful devouring ability of the Cold Hell Peacock Mother to directly try to devour the opponent. The terrifying and huge amount of information turned into countless golden light points in the Garan Soul Ring pillar. They gathered and dispersed in groups. Sometimes they exploded like golden fireworks, and sometimes they were so thin that they were almost invisible. A 5-color dragon-headed phantom was fighting and killing a white ferocious peacock inside the soul ring pillar. The two were evenly matched at first, but as time went by, the 5-colored dragon had no subsequent supply of power, while the Korean prison peacock had a steady supply of soul power, and the gap between the two sides gradually widened. I don't know how long it took, but the white peacock finally bit the 5-color dragon's neck and head, forcing it to the ground. Bang! Garen slowly opened his eyes and found himself lying in the white wilderness of ice and snow. The surface of his body was covered with a thick layer of snow, almost covering him up. He struggled to stand up. There was no living thing around him. He was flying around in confusion just now. He didn't choose a direction at all, but found the safest direction to shoot. I don't remember how far I flew. The skin and muscles all over his body were like mummies, without any moisture. In human form, almost his whole body was black. Garen released a water mirror with a snap of his fingers and looked at himself inside. Skin and bones, simply miserable. It looks just like a mummy, Garen said helplessly as he dispersed the water mirror. He immediately began to check his physical condition and looked at the status bar. Galeong strength 210, 34, agility 210, 22, Constitution 210, 57, Intelligence 210, 101, Potential 2829%, Soul Limit 210. 7 Soul Rings, 5 colorless, red and orange. Level 10 Dragon Power. Level 10 Arcana. Void Codex -100%. The hind legs are evil soldiers, the wings are 7 lives, and the tail is grimoire. Overall evaluation, close to a demigod. Title, Winter's Sigh. Status, extremely weak, Tiamat's vicious flame weaver. Being damaged by Tiamat's dragon god's divine power, you will receive a weakened version of the 5-color elemental dragon's breath damage at noon every day. It's really miserable. Garen laughed at himself, but what happened next made him feel better. On the skill bar, a brand new thing is slowly emerging. Just in front of the original identity column, Void Stalker, a golden symbol slowly emerged. Potential divine creature, Void Stalker. Garen focused his attention on the symbol of a divine creature, and suddenly a large amount of flowing information poured directly into his mind. Successfully swallowing the divinity of Tiamat, acquiring the unique divine creature properties. Below is a list of characteristics of divine creatures. All are a series of various passive ability symbols. The top ones are ice immunity, breath strengthening, elemental resistance, and defense strengthening. These 4 abilities are the most important. The rest are some simple and practical spells, once a day. Summon the ice element, the level is reduced by 2 for yourself. Freeze the winter weather 3 times a day, spell to change the sky, as well as harden ice and snow, frost descent, eye of frost, etc. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1350. But these spells are not as practical as the previous 4 passive abilities. Cold Immunity, Galleon is immune to all cold damage, including some divine damage. Breath Enhancement, the breath that originally had only the highest level 9 power was strengthened to level 13 due to divine transformation. Elemental Resistance, increases resistance to damage from the 4 elements of earth, water, wind, and fire by 10%, plus its own dragon resistance of 10%, and the Galleon suddenly reaches 20%, which is very impressive. The final defense enhancement is the core. Defense Enhancement, divine creatures increase their defense by 20, now 50, and offset 10% of divine damage. This is a terrifying effect, which means that normal attack physical damage with a power lower than 50 points is completely ineffective against Garen. Originally, he was close to being immune to low-level weapon damage because of his strong physique, but now this ability has gone further. A warrior with 50 points of strength is already equivalent to a high-level knight among humans. In other words, without special attribute weapons, no matter how sharp the weapon is, it is not powerful enough to hurt Galleon's scales, let alone the scales. The dragon body underneath. To put it simply, the human sea tactic is no longer effective against Galleon. The latter offset of 10% of divine damage means that any further divine damage to Galleons will be weakened by 10%. These are the rights and characteristics of being a divine creature. From this moment on, he officially entered the true demigod level. The most important difference between demigods and ordinary creatures lies in the differences in various immunity resistances and defense levels. Overall, for the same human warrior, in the semi-god state, he will have a bunch of more spells. At the same time, he will be more resistant to various types of damage, and his attacks will also receive special accessory enhancements. However, there is not much improvement in terms of vitality and other attributes. It's just that lifespan has been greatly extended. Garen stood in the snow and stretched out his hand, feeling as if he could control the movement of the heavy snow at any time. This was the effect of spell-like celestial control. This kind of spell does not consume his spell slots. Although he doesn't use many spell slots originally, most of them rely on hand-to-hand combat to kill enemies. This kind of saving of spell slots is very important for weak creatures, but for powerful dragons like Garen, it doesn't matter. A spider web spell might be enough for him to break free with just a twitch of his toes. The mid to low level spell slots are meaningless except to make life more convenient. We must recover our physical condition as soon as possible. Garen frowned. In this chaotic era, it is very dangerous for a dragon to have no ability to protect itself. And Tiamat may find him at any time through prophecy. As for why he devoured divinity so quickly, Garen guessed that he was not analyzing divinity this time, but directly relying on his devouring ability to devour it. Naturally, the efficiency was much higher. It was like holding a mobile phone and dissecting it. Let's study the principle thoroughly. The gap in the middle is different. Most creatures use the former directly, but Garen wants to do the latter, because as long as the analysis is thorough, more divinities of the same nature can be analyzed through a trace of divinity extension, as long as there is a powerful enough calculation with the power and information database. Sooner or later, a complete godhead that can develop this trace of divinity can be constructed. This is the key. In other words, as long as Garen thoroughly studies the divinity of corrosion, he can use this thread to combine and extend the corrosive death godhead, or the decayed godhead after corrosion. If a trace of time divinity is analyzed, he can combine it into the aging godhead, etc. Wait. The essence of divinity is ultimately the understanding of the laws of the universe by the biological ontology's instinct, and it is the natural understanding and evolution of the laws by the will of the physical cells. The fastest way to recover the body is naturally to devour it. Garen glanced around. Theoretically, the phagocytosis ability of the cold hell peacock mother can devour everything and turn it into energy, but things like snow, water, ordinary stone, and soil can't be swallowed. Hundreds of millions of tons may not be enough for him to restore 1% of his body. After all, their properties are different, and a lot of loss is required during transformation. Moreover, these substances contain less energy. To replenish vitality, the best thing is to devour something that also has vitality. Garen's eyes fell on a cedar not far away. He strode toward the cedar. Soon he walked into the pine forest. As if frightened by his breath, several snow wolves ran away in the distance. Garen ignored them and stretched out his hand to press on a big tree. The bark covered with white snow and frost suddenly dried up at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a large amount of snow powder fell. The whole thick tree was surrounded by one person, and soon it bent down like an old human being, becoming rickety and old. It was a young and moisture-rich tree. The bark quickly becomes hard and dries up, turning into black old bark. And Garen's complexion seemed to be slightly rosy. Unfortunately, what I swallowed was only a little bit of pure divinity. If there were divinity with incidental properties, the effect might be much better. After Garen absorbed a big tree, he quickly moved to another one. As time passed slowly, he quickly absorbed the entire cedar forest, and the skin and muscles on his body gradually became plumper, at least not as dry as they looked. Garen moved his hands. It's too slow to go on like this. Behind him, it slowly twisted, and a strange man covered in darkness appeared, holding a violin in his hand. The man's face was cold and handsome, and his eyes had a faint golden luster. "Master, what are your orders?" He bowed gracefully. "If I want to recover as soon as possible, I need to at least swallow a large number of living organisms. Now that I am not strong enough, everything depends on you," Garen said sternly. "Of course, no problem." Magic Code smiled slightly, gently set up the violin in his hand, and slowly placed the bow on the strings. He slowly closed his eyes, as if immersed in the artistic conception. G. Suddenly, a huge, harsh sound wave centered on him resounded through all the surrounding snow. A violent and seductive piano music spread along with the cold wind, and twisted human faces seemed to emerge from the cold wind, flying in all directions. What the Holy Phoenix grimoire is best at is not killing, but extremely domineering hypnosis and charm. Soon, all the creatures in the surrounding snow who heard the music slowly turned red with blood in their eyes. They all walked towards the center where the music came from, and their consciousness seemed to have completely sunk. As he walked slowly, Garen gradually felt hundreds of silk mesh-like life force threads connected to his body, including more than a dozen life threads of humans and elves and dwarves. This feeling was wonderful. He seemed to be the center of all life threads, and countless life forces were flowing towards him. Garen couldn't help but make a sound of pleasure. The distant east of the main plain. Above a series of mountains covered with yellow rocks. Two golden doors slowly emerged. The doors opened, and two majestic gods shining with golden light walked out. Each of them had wings on his back, and he was wearing armor and holding a long sword. Another wears a crystal crown, with white flames burning at his feet. In the evening, the blood-red sunset slowly set, and the yellow mountains below slowly shook. Elf fire? I couldn't eat you last time, but you dare to come this time. A huge snake head slowly arched out from the middle of the mountain range. He spit out rock cores and stared evilly at the white flames at his feet. Gods. Leaving the kingdom of God rashly will be your greatest regret. The giant rock snake smiled evilly. Remorse, elf fire touched a crack on the crystal crown on his head, with deep murderous intent in his eyes. King of Iweza, today will be your death. A platinum wavy dagger suddenly appeared in his hand. Gently throwing the dagger forward, the sky suddenly darkened, the setting sun actually twisted, and a bit of golden flame was released from the center, flying towards this direction at high speed. Sun God's light, the face of the giant rock snake changed drastically, and it burrowed down into the ground, trying to escape. But it was too late. A thin layer of golden light completely blocked him from burrowing into the ground. This is the special divine power barrier of the superior god, the powerful sun god. The elf fire actually lent the sun god's artifacts. He is obviously just a middle god. True spirit of chaos, today is the day when the war between gods officially begins. Elf fire showed a hint of ferocity on his face, nodded towards the other god, and the two of them pounced downwards. For a time, countless golden lights collided with the rock, and the rock shattered into ashes, flying up and spreading to the entire area of dozens of kilometers in radius. Temple of the Void. The king of Iweza actually fell. The Temple of the Void is a huge metal vortex, entrenched in the center of the galaxy. Countless metal rings form a metallic galaxy shape, slowly rotating. There are hundreds of billions of metal planets rotating slowly, forming galaxies of different sizes. At the very center of the metal galaxy, in a huge planet-like pool, the sound came from here. There is a silvery white liquid in the pool, which is thick and spontaneously making small ripples. The other side started to fight back. It was the sun god who took action, but it doesn't matter, another woman's voice sounded. It was bound to happen sooner or later. Although the existence that enters first will improve much faster, it will also bear the greatest risk. There must be a balance between gains and losses, another old man's voice sounded. Since they have expressed their opinions, we can't just watch. The first man to speak said coldly. The Mother River Alliance has let the Eye of Slaughter go. Then let's officially start the plan. A man with a silvery metallic texture slowly rose from the silver pool. Dozens of various weapons were inserted into his body. Some of these weapons were rotten and rusty, and some were shining with silvery gold light. The man skewed white bone dagger was pierced into the Tianling cap of his head. The sharp edge of the dagger pierced out from his forehead, and the white brain was solidified on the sharp edge. This being, who was basically dead, actually flew out of the pool slowly and calmly. He spread his hands, and a shrunken solar system slowly emerged in his palm and started to rotate. Lost, do you want to release that? A female voice beside her seemed a little uneasy. In this kind of war of destruction without right or wrong, without compromise, is there anything more terrifying than that? Lost True Spirit smiled. The other true spirits and demon lords remained silent. The God-fearer is nothing, but the real trouble now is the abyss, hell. The lost true spirit said in a low voice, the son of hell has appeared, and in a very short time, a terrifying incarnation that can destroy all existence will appear. I tried to contact the will of the abyss, but was rejected, which made me feel uneasy. The abyss is trying to swallow our souls. He is trying to figure out the secret rules of our world. I can't stop it, but no one can tease me like this and not pay the price. The eyes of the lost true spirit turned into incomparable darkness. He slowly looked at the solar system in his hand. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1351. Northland Dirida Empire, Kalora City. Ding dang ding ding dang. The red carriage jingled and jingled, advancing slowly on the central street of the city. The driver on the carriage was an old man with a white beard wearing a black captain's hat. He pretended to be a pirate and looked at both sides with a smile. Children joining in the fun. After hearing the excitement and joy on both sides, the cries of snacks and sundries, the cheers of people, and the playing of minstrels, the bustling crowds crowded on the streets, and the carriages could only slow down to prevent bump into other people. Bang bang bang. Groups of colorful streamers exploded in the sky, some containing colored powder exploded, scattering large swathes of colored light spots. Women and children gathered around the clown selling candy. Magicians and acrobatic dwarfs stood on high street performance stages on both sides, performing various gorgeous skills. Most of the young people came out for shopping. The early morning sun shines down, coating the entire city with a layer of pale gold. From time to time, groups of patrolling guards passed by on the side of the street, among which a Northland mage wearing a cloak could be faintly seen. These people were wearing grey robes, and most of them were silent, with their heads lowered, or chatting quietly with other companions. Seems quiet and mysterious. When people around them look past them, there is always a sense of awe. There have been more and more void creatures recently, the mage in the patrol sighed softly. Isn't it? I received 3 reports yesterday and the day before yesterday. They were all crimes committed by void creatures. They haven't been solved yet. Some uneasy factors have spread in the city. The guard captain looked helpless. The captain received the order from above, we are asked to strengthen our defense, but how can we alone be enough? Now is the Usha festival, an annual carnival, and we are already short of manpower. After all, we do not belong to the Orthodox Delata. We are directly under the White Dragon Mountain. The problem of void creatures has been reported, but we have not received a response so far. It is obviously due to lack of manpower, the mage replied in a low voice. Hey, someone is performing a violin solo over there. A female guard walked toward a high platform not far away with interest. The other patrol members followed helplessly in that direction. On the high platform in the distance, a bard wearing a black cloak could be vaguely seen holding a violin, with the bow on the strings, as if he was just about to start playing. Kalola has been a border city directly under the White Dragon Mountains for thousands of years. It has all the history of the development of White Dragon and is the cultural and artistic capital of Dirida. The man in the black cloak spoke softly in a magnetic voice. I'm lucky enough to come here and see the prosperity and peace here. I sincerely hope that I can contribute a piece of music to everything here, a music composed by myself. Dream. This is the name of the music. The black cloak slowly played the strings. The beautiful and slender sound of the piano, like silk, filled the noisy streets. It was not covered by other noises at all and was extremely clear. There were not many people watching around the stage, but as the black cloak started, they all stopped to listen and appreciate. Time passed slowly, and as the sound of the piano became clearer and louder, more and more people gathered. Several people in the patrol team were faintly indulged in this beautiful and peaceful music. The mage suddenly trembled and came back to his senses with some vigilance. What's going on? I was completely immersed in it just now. He didn't like music at all, but he actually felt that the sound of the piano was like the most beautiful moonlight, shining evenly on himself, cold and quiet. It was as if the whole person's heart had calmed down. He looked around and suddenly realized that something was wrong. Not only him, but also the captain of the team, Aswang, who had reached level 3, fell into complete silence. He was a rough man who hated music, but he could be attracted by the sound of the piano. Stick it in. No. There's something wrong with the sound of the piano. The mage suddenly became alarmed. He squeezed the team member next to him hard, but the other party actually didn't react at all. The movement that usually made people scream in pain actually showed no reaction at this time. No, not even a frown could be seen. The sound of the piano floats farther and farther and becomes wider and wider. The black cloak on the stage slowly floated up at some point. He flew higher and higher, landing gently on the top of the tallest bell tower nearby. He still played the violin quietly, as if nothing could stop him from playing. The mage opened his mouth to shout, to interrupt the sound of the piano, but was shocked to find that he could not make any sound at all. He clamped his throat hard, trying to heal his throat. But to no avail. Still no sound could be made, and he even found that all other noises around him, any sounds that could interfere with the sound of the piano, gradually dimmed until they were inaudible. Faintly, the eyes of the performer under the black cloak lit up with a faint blood light, and the speed of his playing gradually increased and became faster. But there was no spell fluctuation at all. Some are just the most ordinary piano sounds, pure music. Laugh. Suddenly, there was a slight sound from the dense crowd below, and a decadent middle-aged man with a beard stabbed his throat with a cake-cutting knife. He looked up at the sky, with a sad look on his face. Blood dripped down his palms and forearms, but no one around him noticed at all. In other words, no one even noticed it. The sound of the piano slowly becomes sad and desolate with the rhythm. Tisk. There were two more soft sounds, and the two listeners stabbed their own throats with fruit knives. They lay down in a pool of blood with tears, but no one cared at all. The number of people committing suicide gradually began to increase. They picked up various sharp objects and stabbed their own throats fiercely. They fell silently on the street without letting out a single scream or cry of pain before dying. 10, 20, 50, 100. More and more people are splashing blood with the smell of rust. The city streets seemed to be enveloped in blood. The mage stood in the crowd. He tried hard to control himself not to listen to the weird sound of the piano. He was born with a very high mental defect, that is, it was difficult for him to concentrate on doing one thing, which is why he has not been able to do anything to this day. It's just the key to level 2 mages. But at this moment, his inability to concentrate became his biggest savior. His scalp was numb as he watched his captain Aswang draw out his sword and cut his throat and trachea with the sword. He was still smiling with tears in his eyes before falling to the ground. He wanted to stop him, but his body was completely unable to move, as if he was not under his control at all. What the hell is going on? He shouted with fear in his heart, but it did not change the stiffness of his body at all. More and more people are committing suicide, and the blood on the ground is gathering into a river. Groups of pigeons and other unknown birds and insects are mixed together, spinning and flying wildly around the black cloak of the performer. From time to time, they hit the surrounding walls hard. And on the building, but the dead similar ones couldn't wake them up at all, and they were still flying around the performer at high speed. This is the sound of death. Such a thought sadly appeared in the mage's mind. This was also his last and only thought. His vision went dark, and he suddenly fell to the ground, unconscious. In just half an hour, the entire prosperous city of Kalora has completely turned into a dead city. Blood filled every corner of the city. All living things, whether human or animals, committed suicide amidst the strange sound of the piano. Even some void creatures hidden in the crowd could not escape this catastrophe. Laugh. As the city lord finally entered the palace, the seventh-level city lord raised his sword and committed suicide. The music of the black cloak finally slowly came to an end. He gently played the last note and put down the violin. Looking at this huge city with a population of more than 100,000, it has completely turned into a city of blood without any human life. What a wonderful piece of music! A young man, whose skin was as clear as crystal gems and full of life, slowly emerged from behind the performer. He was wearing a white robe, and his eyes had strange black and white pupils. There was also a white pupil in the black pupils, which looked extremely strange. "Master, are you satisfied with your meal?" Magician turned around gracefully and saluted. "The body has recovered completely." Garin nodded with satisfaction. The vitality of 150,000 people and the desperate skull of 150,000 souls have reached the point of saturation. He raised his left hand, and several colorful diamonds appeared on the surface of the black bracelet on his wrist. It is an alternating red and golden diamond. There are 5 in total. Sure enough, the slaughter is more efficient. Garin couldn't be more satisfied. A broken diamond represents a soul seed condensed by the death bracelet. There are 5 of these broken diamonds, which means that these more than 10 the fragments of tens of thousands of souls provided him with at least 5 soul seeds. This is different from sneaking around in the abyss and the will of the abyss. He opened his mouth slightly and inhaled, and suddenly the 5 diamonds on the bracelet suddenly turned into 5 rays of light and penetrated into his mouth. Closing his mouth in satisfaction, Garin closed his eyes as if enjoying this rare gain. In the dark soul space, the 8th soul ring was finally completed instantly. After the 5 soul seeds were integrated, this soul ring was directly upgraded to a light red soul ring. As long as it is upgraded to orange, it will eventually reach the yellow level and enter the Upper Demon King level. The peak of the Upper Demon King is the point where he can resist the power of the lower gods. He is not an incarnation, but a real god descending to earth. Another dense invisible energy also condensed in Garin's body and quickly converged into the 9-sided body on his chest. The massacre of more than 100,000 lives also caused Garin to form a gray-black 9-sided body. Roar! Suddenly, a huge angry dragon roar came from the distant sky. "Oh, it's Tiamat's power." Garin looked up and smiled. It's a pity that he came a little late. Laugh. Garin and the two disappeared instantly at the top of the clock tower. The city of Corolla and the ancient city directly under the White Dragon Mountain were massacred, and the lives and souls of 150,000 people disappeared. They did not enter the abyss or hell, nor did they return to the river Styx and the kingdom of Tiamat. Everything they had mysteriously disappeared. Since Tiamat has no church, only scattered believers and some evil priests, few can get more clues from him. Only a few survivors described to everyone what happened that day. An evil and strange performer hypnotized the entire city. Those people were not killed by him at all, but all committed suicide. Corpses were scattered all over the streets and alleys of the city, and even the powerful city lord, who was as high as level 7, committed suicide in his bedroom. But this was just news that deserved attention. Baelongshan was furious and sent a large number of members to capture a genius Baelong named Garin. However, in every encounter, he was directly defeated and massacred by Garin. In just half a month, more than 30 adult white dragons, old dragons, and ancient dragons died in Garin's hands. In the second half of the month, not only Kalora City, but also Rosen City, 700 kilometers away, suffered the same fate. This city is not directly affiliated with Baelong Mountain. It is a border city affiliated with the Black Pattern Empire, also known as the Black Elf Empire. Most of the people stationed in it are army soldiers. The number of people massacred this time directly reached 250,000. The terrifying legend of the dead man's song spread throughout the north. Two major cities were massacred in a row, and a large number of pastors and church personnel gathered there to try to find out the situation. But all the evidence without exception points to the new dragon of disaster, the white dragon Garen. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1352. Baelongshan applied to the Dragon Clan Alliance to issue a Dragon Clan pursuit order. Major churches also sent out elite forces to join forces to encircle and suppress the attack. There is evidence that Garen has reached the pinnacle of the mortal realm, which is the 15th level. It is even hinted in Tiamat's oracle that Garen already possesses the demigod nature. If a 15-level demigod is not surrounded by at least 3 powerful men of the same level, or the incarnation of a god descends to earth, it is basically impossible to imprison or hunt him. But in this general situation where the gods are suppressed by the void, the gods are still dealing with the continuous destruction of the 3 major voids. The Eye of Slaughter seems to be showing signs of resurgence. He spreads the evil eye in the inner elemental plane. Church, and annexed the Church of the Great Mistress of the Abyss. The lost true spirit seemed to have taken action and began to spread something on the main plane. The only twisted demon lord who was a little more peaceful also began to actively invade the territory, occupying more than half of the entire Eastern Empire's total territory. The gods formed an alliance and sent out a coalition of incarnations to attack the twisted demon lord. The two sides reached a stalemate, and they were able to barely prevent the demon lord's void army from invading and advancing. Under such circumstances, the Church Pantheon had no spare power to attack and suppress Garen. It can only be left to the Dragon Alliance to solve the problem. The flames of war and death filled the skies of the entire world. True spirits and demon lords stepped out of the twisted void cracks one after another. Most of the demon lords' true spirits did not have any organization. They came here just to kill and increase their own power. These monster-like strong men are even more terrifying than the disaster dragon. They don't want anyone alive, and the only thing they bring is slaughter wherever they go. This kind of massacre is like a devouring erosion, even the soul is not spared. This caused displeasure in the abyss and hell. The legend of the children of hell also began to spread around the world, and a solid line of defense stretching millions of kilometers was quickly organized. This sacred line of defense effectively blocked the advancement of the void creatures. The gods teamed up to release an extremely huge void detection spell, and a true superior god finally descended to earth. The sun god Osiris descended from the sky with his legion of blazing flames. His kingdom of God showed an exit in the sky behind the sacred defense line. Large groups of seraphs flew out from the exit, densely packed and joining in the battle against the void creatures. The location of Garen is exactly outside the sacred defense line. It is the place where void creatures are densely populated. As the chaotic killings, death, and blood spread, a large number of cities began to flee. The larger the city, the more people fled. A large number of portals appeared throughout the main material plane. The gods took action to open all the upper inner planes. Countless elemental armies, various other racial legions, as well as celestial creatures, hell creatures, abyss legions, etc. rushed in. Out. All joined the war against the void creatures. While Garen was raging in search of enlightenment soul fragments, the local forces had some advantages in the entire battlefield for a while. However, the lower class people suffered a large number of casualties and were massacred by void creatures, resulting in the degradation of productivity and large tracts of cultivated land without people working. Logistics gradually became deficient. The number of humans has been greatly reduced in the chaos, and has been replaced by other major races that continue to emerge from all major planes, the largest of which are legions from various levels of the abyss and hell. Incarnations of gods, demon lords, true spirits, lords of hell, and lords of the abyss, existences whose names could only be seen in classics appeared one after another. They fought with each other in the sky of the main material plane, and the entire main plane was destroyed. Caught in blood and fire. In the sky at dusk, a huge gray snake corpse floated. The giant snake covered almost half of the sky. Its eyes were gouged out, leaving only 2 bloody holes. There were dense white bone spurs on both sides of its body, some of which had been broken. A faint black energy was slowly released around it, and no creature dared to approach within the spread range of the black energy. Garen lowered his head and looked away. He quietly avoided the troops that surrounded him and came to another relatively inconspicuous area. Southern Sea coastline. A terrible war broke out here not long ago. The giant snake corpse in the sky covering most of the sky is the corpse of a true spirit that fell here. His corpse is still releasing terror even after it has been dead for dozens of days. The aura of death will cause all living creatures to quickly age and die. Garen slowly walked alone in the silent port city of Crystal City. This place is already a dead city. The battle between the true spirits and the gods caused the place to be shrouded in the aura of divine power and true spirits. All existences below level 8 were instantly obliterated. 2 demon lords and 1 true spirit have fallen here. Of course, our results are also brilliant. 5 gods have fallen here. One of them is a middle god. A young woman's voice rang in Garen's ears. We are responsible for cleaning up the central battlefield. The soul fragments you are looking for are not here, and if they are, they have been looted long ago. But this is the best place to understand the divinity of death and decay, because the gods and true spirits who have fallen here, the devil is almost always related to these 2 divinities. Thank you. Garen nodded. The person talking to him was one of the demon kings in charge of the Mother River Alliance. He found this channel from Snake Princess and came here to look for it to see if he could gain anything. Slaughtering more than 500,000 creatures along the way, Garen's fame has spread throughout the Northland and he has become one of the few powerful demon kings. Although he is not the strongest, he is definitely the most covered in killing. His killing music does not have any magic energy fluctuations. He can actually cause countless people to commit suicide just by relying on pure sound hypnosis. This is also a key factor in his fame. Okay, I'll just take a look for myself, and you can go ahead, Garen replied in a low voice. Nothing, I also want to thank you for giving me extra money, the woman chuckled, her voice gradually getting darker. The most famous landmark building in the port city of Crystal City is a huge tower in the center made entirely of glass. This is the Mage Tower, the Crystal Tower, that controls the defense center of the entire city. It is controlled by the city lord here, a 15th level great arcanist. Garen looked up and saw that the current Crystal Tower was like a broken stick, with half of the top falling on the ruins of the building beside it. It looked dilapidated. And that's where the aura of divinity is strongest. His eyes blinked. Let's start. Scanning for traces of divine power begins. The consciousness brain has begun to have an initial effect on the outside world. Using Galleon's current perception and spell energy induction, it has a perception that is even dozens of times higher than Galleon itself. It can quickly find clues even if there are just a few clues. Garen walked slowly among the ruins, heading towards the Crystal Tower. On both sides are deserted grey-white stone buildings, most of which have spires. The buildings are surrounded by arched windows. The streets below are filled with dried bones and clothes, as well as broken stone statues, bronze statues, etc. There was still black stinking sewage in a pond at an intersection. Some dead birds were floating in it. There were not even maggots, flies or other detritivorous organisms. Divine traces of death were found. Divinity power radiation 11%, 15%. Garen stopped, paused, and then continued walking forward. The radiation is increased by 21%, 27%, and 30%. Garen stopped again. He raised his hand and saw that his skin had faint traces of blackening and dryness. Tiny wrinkles appeared on the originally plump skin. It's really a terrifying power that can have such a big impact on me after so long. It's worthy of a true spirit-level battle, Garen sighed. This should speed up my analysis of the divinity of decay. He simply sat down cross-legged. Jing Jing began to feel the aura of power left here. The conscious brain begins to operate at high speed. Garen's soul limit has now reached 260 points. The despair skull absorbs souls to provide potential points, while the death bracelet absorbs fragments to provide soul seed soul power. The two complement each other. The first thing Garen improved was his intelligence, which was the key to affecting the calculation speed of his conscious brain. An intelligence of 260 points provided him with extremely high calculation speed. The analysis of the decayed divinity has also reached a critical moment. Once successful, he will truly understand the nature of decay, and then extend it to construct a godhead in the aspect of decay. Maybe other demon kings also have technological means, but absolutely no one has as high a computing power as me. My computing power is countless times theirs, and it would take me so long to barely analyze a trace of divinity. Not to mention them, the road to Garan is almost unique and irreplaceable. He relaxed, stopped thinking, and focused all his energy on the calculations of his conscious brain. These are crazy times. Garen sighed softly, and the nine-sided body on his chest suddenly shattered, turning into a large amount of pure energy and pouring into his brain. This is an application of the nonahedron, the pure energy that can be used to evolve and enhance any aspect of the body. The improvement of computing power is also one of them. The killing power of 500,000 creatures quickly nourished Garen's mind, and terrifying veins appeared everywhere on his face and head. Buzz. Slowly, a black halo appeared behind Garen's head. Countless digital data formulas were densely packed on the halo, slowly rotating and flowing. Obtaining unknown energy support, the computing power is greatly improved. The conscious brain just fed back a message and immediately misfired. The black halo behind Garen's head rotated faster and faster. Tisk tisk tisk. Suddenly, a large amount of black light burst out from the halo, flying and scattering in all directions. Each thread is like a steel cable, piercing deeply into the surrounding ground and void. It was as if the roots of a big tree were absorbing nutrients from the surrounding time and space. Garen opened his eyes and saw this scene, with a hint of surprise and thoughtfulness on his face. Closing his eyes again, he immersed himself in calculations again. This sitting lasts for 10 days. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1353. Dark Abyss. Everything has been arranged. A blonde woman in red floated in front of and whispered. Have all the 15 nodes arranged by the north been completed? And turned his back to her, playing with a small black dagger with a faint silver light in his hand. The dagger on the dagger danced with a subtle red luster from time to time. It's done. 15 nodes, each one is controlled by a demigod, the woman answered quickly. And turned around and frowned. It's a pity that you are the only one I can use. Mullah and the others left too early before I could come back. Even your power cannot save their lives. This is the inevitable result of time. The woman also showed a hint of sadness. As the leader of the 3 most powerful disaster dragon lords, and naturally has extremely powerful power under her command. There were originally 5 disaster dragon generals with low-level divine power, but now she is the only one left. The faction that was extremely powerful and glorious at the beginning now only has about 20 strong demigods left, and as for those under demigods, they can almost be ignored. I contacted some manpower. It depends on the specific situation. Even if there are not many manpower, I have to take action. Now is the best time, and said calmly. Where's the time? 1 week later, and raised his head and looked in a certain direction. His eyes seemed to penetrate countless obstacles and saw a powerful existence hidden in the darkness. He can't hide. Garen woke up from his immersion. He checked the time, and the timer in his conscious mind showed that 10 days had passed since he was immersed. Unknowingly, he had discovered an increasingly complex black aperture behind his head. It was something similar to a halo. A large amount of data and runes were flowing and calculating in it. Most of the patterns and symbols in the entire aperture had been carved. It is complete, but there is still a small part that is not completely perfected. Rotten Godhead, Garen felt what his subconscious mind had built using that trace of divinity. He has never seen the Godhead, but that doesn't stop him from figuring out what this aperture is. He has spent more than 20 years occupying most of the computing power of his conscious brain, and what he has finally come up with is somehow related to the Godhead. The Godhead is a polymer that can be transformed into divine power by using the priesthood after the divine nature ignites the divine fire. It requires all the soul and will to be invested in it. I am still independent now, and obviously I am not a Godhead, so what does this thing mean? Garen observed the black circle of light behind him with slight confusion. This thing emits a large amount of black threads, like tree roots, constantly absorbing something special like soul power from the surrounding void. This absorbed thing is mixed with a trace of fear, hatred, and other emotions. It is obviously the feared power of faith unique to the dragon of disaster. What do I stand for? Garen frowned slightly. What do those who hate me think of me? As soon as this question arose from the bottom of his heart, he suddenly seemed to hear a large number of various voices. Winter Dragon, I curse you to be imprisoned and tortured in the bottomless abyss forever. Sooner or later the Lord of Hell will tear off your skin and flesh and dry them on the gate of hell. I will take revenge. One day I will kill you. Winter Dragon, I want you to pay for my son's life. Countless voices emerged from the bottom of my heart. Garen watched these voices quietly. It felt strange to be hated by countless survivors. This was the first time he felt such a thing. In addition to these, there are also some who are afraid of the power of his beliefs. Those beliefs are much simpler. Most of them are praying that he will not appear and spread the winter of death. It seems that this thing is indeed equivalent to a semi-finished product, but I haven't determined what I represent yet. Garen understood in his heart. N represents time and shadow, and all the power of fear and belief will be transformed by her divinity into the power of trial and shadow, or the power of disaster. The divine Godhead I built is mainly based on corruption, so I will temporarily position it as corruption. Garen thought about it for a while, and directly positioned this relatively unorthodox priesthood. The initial positioning in the determination of the priesthood corruption including corrosion and decay, which can be extended to the erosion of time, decay, and aging. The conscious brain immediately sends feedback. At the moment when he confirmed this priesthood, Garen suddenly felt a tremor all over. The black aperture behind him suddenly vibrated, and he quickly completed the remaining patterns and symbols. In just tens of seconds, the entire aperture was completely perfected. After the aperture is perfected, it is like a burning flame, surrounded by a ring, and a large number of black light spots spread out from the edge of the ring. It looks eerie and profound. In the dark, Garen faintly felt a powerful gaze looking at him from an infinite distance. The gaze was cold and ruthless, with the aura of death, and even a long distance could not block its penetrating sight. God of Death. Is the duplication of the priesthood leading to competition for the power of faith? Garen's heart froze, knowing that the priesthood he positioned should be the same as the God of Death. In this case, there will definitely be a divine war for the priesthood. I have just confirmed my priesthood now, and I haven't accumulated enough divine power yet. It seems I have to stay away from the limelight for a while. Garen felt a strong sense of vigilance in his heart. The God of Death is a veritable high-ranking god, and one of the few powerful beings in the major pantheons. A confrontation with him will never end well. Thinking of this, the black flame circle behind him automatically disappeared, but he could still feel that the large number of black lines like tree roots were still connecting those living souls who feared him and hated him, and were still flowing continuously. Provide him with this massive amount of faith. And these powers of faith are also flowing into his Godhead like a trickle, and then they are transformed into black threads of energy and integrated into his soul ring structure. While the power of disaster is being condensed, you can choose from 1. Store and enhance your godhood. 2. Direct consumption to strengthen oneself. Feedback comes from the conscious brain. Garen glanced at his current level. Godhead, 1 typical weak divine power. Can it also directly strengthen itself? He didn't expect it to have this function. Generally speaking, divine power is mainly used to consume and accumulate to improve the level of godhood. The higher the level of godhood, the more divine spells can be provided to believers, and the power will become more and more powerful. Garen took a careful look at his current state. Galeung strength 260, agility 260, constitution 260, intelligence 260, potential 12,829%, soul limit 000. 8 soul rings, 5 colorless, red and orange. Red. Level 10 dragon power. Level 10 arcana. Potential, divine creature, void stalker. Codex of the Void -70%. The hind legs are evil soldiers, the wings are 7 lives, and the tail is grimoire. Overall evaluation, God of Decay, Godhead 1. Title, Winter's Sigh. The soul limit has actually become 0, Garen was slightly startled, then overjoyed. He carefully felt his current state, and it seemed that the transformed decaying divine power directly turned into a thin film covering his body surface, and this film continued to strengthen with the transformation of divine power. This should be the so-called divine shield. It seems that most gods rely on divine power to be used as a protective force field. For them, divine power is more like a layer of natural armor that can resist any attack. It only needs to be consumed. It's just a certain amount of divine power. Garen quickly came to a conclusion in his mind. There are almost no classics mentioning the strengthening and improvement of the real gods' bodies. I have not found any gods in Anne's books that have the intention of improving their bodies. Generally, they are slowly assimilated and transformed with the divine power, and are completely integrated with the divine power. Become one body and become the embodiment of your own ocean of divine power. The true spirit demon lords directly use all their power to strengthen their own bodies. It seems that these two choices given by the conscious brain should be the dividing line between true spirits and gods. Garen's heart suddenly became clear. If you choose to accumulate, the divine power will automatically turn into a divine shield. This is the root of the gods. If you choose to strengthen, then it is the root of the true spirits. Of course there was no hesitation about this. Garen directly chose to strengthen. Although the gods are powerful, many of them are constrained by the power of their own faith. When the power of faith is large, it will be fine. Once there is less, the Godhead will be downgraded and they will be implicated. The true spirits only use all power as elements to strengthen themselves, free from any external interference. Which one is better and which one is worse is immediately clear. This is also the key to the fact that the gods in this world are getting weaker as they fight, because ordinary people's believers are being slaughtered in large numbers. This is the source of their divine power. Choose to strengthen. After Garen was determined. Suddenly, the thin layer of divine power was slowly swallowed up by Garen's instinct. Garen's current body possesses the terrifying devouring instinct of the cold hell peacock mother. Unless he controls himself not to devour it, any energy that comes too close to him will be absorbed and devoured by its instinct. Gods have no soul limits. It should be due to the special characteristics of their souls. I am compatible with the characteristics of gods and true spirits. Perhaps there are very few people in this world, Garen speculated in his mind. From now on, he is also a god with weak divine power, although he is still very weak. But without the limit of his soul, he can improve his attributes almost infinitely. Quickly glancing at his semi-artifact skull of despair, Garen made a rough estimate and found that it still had several thousand potential points. Without any hesitation, he directly used his devouring instinct and began to absorb the potential points in it. At the same time, his conscious brain automatically began to convert it into intelligence. Yes, he didn't improve any other attributes first, but his intelligence first. After there are no attribute restrictions, he directly improves the most critical intelligence for the conscious brain. Intelligence determines the speed at which the conscious brain analyzes divinity, and also determines the speed at which his godhead transforms into divine power. Divine power can be accumulated through time and the number of religious creature groups, or through plunder. As he was about to participate in An's encirclement and suppression operation, Garen had already planned to make maximum preparations for this operation. Next, it's time to take care of An's affairs. Garen listed the information he had about the true spirit demon lord. Standing up, he disappeared instantly. Encirclement and suppression, the demon lord of lies lazily looked at Garen in the water mirror in front of him. She was lying on her side in a black palace, surrounded by pools of blood and bones. It was obviously the temple of some god who had been massacred. God of time and shadow, this guy is not easy to deal with. The Lord of Lies frowned. The key is what do I get? And only wants the time godhead among them, and we will divide the rest of the godhead. According to the amount of effort, Garen explained. The first person he found was the Lord of Lies. After all, this guy had the closest relationship with him. You have just entered the level of gods and you dare to join this level of encirclement and suppression? Kashavan's kingdom of God is no joke. After the kingdom of God increases, there will be a lot of holy spirits that have reached the level of demigods, and they can kill you. The Lord of Lies said in confusion. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1354. Of course I have my own plans. Garen did not explain. In fact, he doesn't want most of the godhead at all. He just wants to get a trace of the divinity of death. As long as a trace of divinity is needed, his consciousness and brain can build it into a complete godhead, so the needs are completely different from those of An and the others participating in the war. Do not conflict. At most, he just wants a few pieces of divine power crystals, which are the condensation of pure divine power. That's what he lacks. Okay, it just so happens that our side also needs a big victory to repay the opponent. The sun god killed the king of Iwasa and gave us a hard blow, the lie demon sneered. It is said that they are cultivating some kind of son of glory, to gather all the divine authority into one incarnation to deal with our pressing trend. The sons of glory, the sons of hell, these are not all their counter-attack methods, Garen said nonchalantly. Okay then, I'll contact other demon lord true spirits. Of course, if you can also contact other people, the greater the safety, the better. Yes, the Lord of Lies' attitude towards Garen is also different from before. Although Garen is still very weak, he is already an out-and-out god. In essence, he is on the same level as her. She speaks. The attitude has also become much more equal. The water mirror disappeared, and the Lord of Lies touched his chin. I don't know how this guy improved. How long has it been since we last met and he's almost becoming a god? I have been a demigod for so many years, but I have been missing the most crucial step. Kunda walked out of the darkness and sighed. To determine your own priesthood, you must also accumulate the power of faith and gather it together to ignite the divine fire to build your own divine kingdom. He is already halfway there. Yes. Although it is not complete, he already has the power of faith. As long as he can withstand the pursuit of gods with conflicting clergy, he can safely ignite the divine fire and build his own divine kingdom. Use the divine fire to shine and release energy. Can support the operation of the kingdom of God. This is an essential process. The Lord of Lies looked appreciative. The spirit system of this world is completely a shortcut to gather the power of all things to accelerate evolution and improvement. It is much faster than when we work so hard to accumulate our own strength. He was gone in one go. Our process of thousands of years. But there are also big drawbacks. Shortcuts come with a price. Kunda shook his head. Yes, the Lord of Lies said no more. Cost. Earth Demon Palace. There are countless black smoke human figures floating around. They are dancing densely in the ancient and evil hall, baring their teeth and claws, like evil ghosts. A trace of weird and cruel music faintly spreads from the void, matching the darkness. Dance of smoke figures. Above the main hall, a strong man with a scorpion head sat crookedly in the tall throne. He patted the armrest gently and seemed to enjoy it along with the music. This is the nearest demon lord's palace nearby after Garen's promotion, the Earth Demon Palace. The master is Gilhaz, a powerful demon lord from the void, a scorpion-headed man. Responsible for the cleaning and defense of this area, under the command of the Twisted Demon Lord. It's really a good song and dance. Garen sat in the VIP seat on the right and clapped his hands gently. Although he couldn't understand what was so good about the ghostly shadow song and dance, he could still say a few polite words of appreciation. Does your Highness also have such singing and dancing? Gilhaz asked with a sideways smile. Of course you don't have it at your teacher's place. This kind of singing and dancing with a special style may only be available here, Lord Gil. Garen complimented. This is natural. Gil nodded. I also understand what you mean. We have always had a certain connection and concern with His Highness. As one of the few powerful beings who have common interests with us in this world, His Highness's potential has made us. It's always been taken very seriously. He stretched out his hand, and a black wine glass appeared in his palm. He gently picked it up and took a sip of the drink. Regarding this matter, it is rare that we all have a common goal and interest, so cooperation is not a problem. However, he paused. But what? Garen's expression remained unchanged, waiting for the next step. However, His Highness is not from our camp after all. Our Lord is somewhat wary of those who are not from our camp. The scorpion-headed man smiled strangely. If the partner we cooperate with is you, we may feel more at ease. They had also checked Garen's background. He was a standard void being with upright roots, and every trace of the secret martial arts on his body showed that he had extremely pure background as the Void Demon King. Moreover, the speed of progress is much faster than that of ordinary demon kings. In just a few years, he has actually almost entered the level of a god from a mid-level demon king. You must know that the level of gods is a top-level existence on the same level as the true spirit of the devil. At this point, it is almost the pinnacle of two worlds. The difference between strength and weakness is nothing more than a competition at the same level. Garen frowned slightly, but there was no interface. Gil, the scorpion-headed man, didn't care either. As long as you are willing, we can make arrangements. As long as you cooperate internally, there will be no big setbacks in taking down the entire Dragon of Disaster faction. Garen heard what he meant, and he was actually dissatisfied with and wanted to support another existence to replace him. Sorry, Don't be anxious. Think about it slowly. Your Highness just met with us not long ago. We are very disappointed with her performance. She has lost the necessary enterprising spirit and actually wants to find a plane to live in seclusion after breaking away from the seal. Jill shook her head. There was a hint of sarcasm. In such a big era, you actually want to live in seclusion. Garen's heart trembled. Obviously, the current situation is that the voids are already dissatisfied with An's passivity. Maybe they have secretly supported another existence and want to elevate him to the top. Now we ask him to cooperate in order to increase the chances of winning and reduce variables. He has no doubt about the strength of the void. The Twisted Demon Lord is the top demon lord that even Fira can directly confront. In this world, it is equivalent to the strongest level among the truly powerful gods. Don't worry, our Mother River Alliance has several gods. They are all created by the gods who killed and devoured the middle gods in the war. Their strength is enough, but they cannot lead all this group without the Dragon of Disaster. And His Highness is able to mobilize a large number of disaster dragons to form a group to fight, and he is the partner we need very much. Gil comforted. Anyway, this siege is also a necessary counterattack for our camp. I hope you can participate. Garen was silent for a while and stood up. As for the teacher, I hope you can observe it for a while. Maybe you will find other changes. I will participate in the siege, but I hope it changes. Gil waved his hand casually. Goodbye then. Goodbye. Garen's figure suddenly disappeared. Gil was not worried that Garen would tell An. In his opinion, the relationship between Garen and An was not that close. Moreover, An was probably more or less aware of their thoughts. It doesn't matter whether he knows it or not. An, who is rejected by the gods' camp, even if he wants to escape, where can he escape to? Garen's figure appeared on a black plain. The surrounding plain was barren of grass and black gravel was evenly distributed on the ground. This is the coordinate transfer point he positioned in advance, less than 1,000 kilometers away from the returning clan. The sky was overcast and it seemed like it was going to rain, and from time to time there was rumble of thunder in the clouds. After receiving the news from Lord Gil, Garen's mood was a little complicated. There seemed to be great differences and conflicts between An and Void. He was also awkward in the middle. How to ease and solve this problem made him feel a little upset. An's plan cannot be reversed by him, and the will of the representatives of the Mother River Alliance is too strong. After all, it's because of the lack of strength. Garen frowned. An had saved his life. No matter what, he couldn't let the Mother River Alliance attack him, but doing so would definitely offend the extremely powerful Mother River Alliance. In this way, whether it is him or An, when facing the angry demon lords such as the Mother River Alliance, the ending will probably be more troublesome. How to find a balance point? Garen also felt irritable for a while. Call. Suddenly, an inexplicable cold wind blew over him, and Garen felt a little weird. Suddenly, a warning sign flashed in his heart, and his whole body moved and disappeared in an instant, appearing not far away, a few hundred meters away. Boom! The place where he originally stood suddenly turned into a sheet of ice crystals, freezing all the plains within tens of meters. A huge white dragon more than 20 meters long slowly rose from the ice crystal ground. As if crawling out of a deep well, he grabbed the ground with his claws and pulled out the back half of his body. This white dragon has a trace of white gold all over its body, a diamond-shaped crystal inlaid between its eyebrows, and a white gold crown on its head. Its eyes are constantly filled with magnificent nebula scenes like the Milky Way. Roar! White Dragon roared at Garen, and a huge force field spread out. Garen! Kill the elders, resist the projection of His Highness Tiamat, and massacre the innocent compatriots in Bailong Mountain. All these crimes will be judged and ended here today. White Dragon King, you don't stay in the abyss, but you actually dare to come out and chase me. Garen's face was gloomy. Aren't you afraid of falling outside and completely losing your place in Bailong Mountain? Just you, the White Dragon King laughed wildly. With my body, God comes. His wings spread wide, and suddenly his whole body burst into intense white light. Warning, warning, you have entered the realm of divine power. Tiamat's divine power appraisal begins. Divine creatures are exempted from the appraisal. If the appraisal fails, the Constitution appraisal is passed, and the effect of divine power is offset. The conscious brain feeds back a large amount of information instantly. Garen frowned. This time Tiamat had obviously transformed himself. Unexpectedly, with his divinity and weak divine power, he is not immune to the effect. Fortunately, his physique is too strong. During this period of time, the massacre has accumulated to a terrifying physique of 260 points. It is almost impossible to have anything in this world. Being can surpass him. Just in time to see how much improvement there will be after condensing the divine power this time. I was suppressed by you last time, let's see who suppresses whom this time. Garen's expression did not change, he pounced forward, and his whole body instantly expanded into a huge white dragon. The 3 pairs of wings on his back slowly opened, and the densely packed green eyes on the 6 wings opened extremely evilly. In conjunction with the strange eyeballs in his double pupils, a strong and decadent aura filled the air. Boom! The 5-color dragon's breath suddenly spurted out from the white dragon king's mouth and slammed into the Garan dragon body that was flying towards him.